So, Madam Administrator, are you all set? Thank you. All right. Okay, it's 10 o'clock, so if you're all set, then we're going to call the meeting to order. First up is the Judicial Department, which covers a number of, I believe it covers a number of areas. So we'll start with you, if you, Representative Nuccio, any comments?
None to start, ma'am.
Senator Summers? I know Representative Walker will have questions, so she's out getting her cup of tea. And Juan, any comments, Representative? Okay, so I have no comments, so if you could just introduce yourselves and let's start.
Good morning, Senator Austin, Representative Walker, Senator Summers, Representative Nuccio, and the members of the Appropriations Committee. My name is Joan Alexander, and I am the Chief Court Administrator. I am honored to make my first appearance before you on behalf of Chief Justice Rahim L. Mullins and the entire judicial branch. I have been told to keep my comments brief, so I will simply say thank you for your support of the judicial branch and for the opportunity to appear before you today. We would be pleased to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you. So I have a couple questions. So you're just doing the Judicial Department, which has an OE section. And so one of the governor's processes has been taking items out of OE that did not fit into the confines of the traditional understanding of what OE is. Can you get us a list of everything that's in your OE? And that way we can make a decision on whether that should have its own line item or not.
I'm going to have our Executive Director, Brian Hill, answer that for you.
Good morning, Senator Austin, Brian Hill. I would be happy to provide that list to you.
That would be great. If we're going to do this, then we should just do it and not do it in dribs and drabs. Death by 1,000 cuts is not helpful. The workers' compensation claims that you have here, are these directly reflective of just the judicial marshals primarily? Is that what it is?
It's reflective of any claims that are filed by judicial branch employees. It would include judicial marshals, but our two largest drivers of our workers' compensation claims would be our 24/7 residential centers, Hartford and Bridgeport, and our judicial marshals.
Thank you. Representative Walker, do you have any comments or questions?
No, not at this moment.
Representative Nuccio? That one turns everything off.
Oh, all right. I just turned everybody off. Yes, thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have a couple of questions. I'm looking for specifically the VOCA funding. And looking at, I know that it's declined in the previous years, but looks like we're going to get, or we got around like $13 million, $13.8 million for our allocation. And I'm trying to figure out, we've had a lot of money go into that fund with ARPA supplementation. We don't have that any longer, and I'm a little concerned with how that money is going to be broken out over the core services. So I was wondering if you could give us an idea of what is your plan for distributing the VOCA funds and ensuring that the core services for victims of crime are being properly funded.
I'm going to ask Mark Pelka, who is our Office of Victim Service, to come up and answer that for you. Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair. I'm Mark Pelka, Judicial Branch Office of Victim Services Director. The ranking member listed the correct last federal VOCA assistance grant award that Connecticut received. The last RFP was completed last year, and the Judicial Branch's plan is to, the intention is to apply a one-year extension to the current contract and use the available funding from VOCA assistance to make grants to the subrecipients.
So is it, what I'm concerned with really is how it's going to be broken out amongst the core services. And really, I'm on the domestic violence
Yes, ma'am.
board, and I would really like to understand how the changes, because it is going to be significantly less money when we take out the ARPA money. And how is that going to impact the court and survivors, children, of domestic violence, and that? How is it going to be broken out amongst the core services?
That has not been determined how they'll be distributed. The previous year's RFP process identified close to 40 contractors that were approved to receive VOCA assistance funding, and the available federal funds were distributed among those contractors. And they run the gamut. VOCA assistance has a requirement of funding for domestic violence, sexual assault, child sexual abuse, underserved populations, and the remainder is discretionary. So I'm on the Domestic Violence Advisory Council as well, and I'm proud that domestic violence is a portion of the funding. And so after the RFP process selected the contractors, they received a distribution of those funding that was available. It was a uniform reduction in funding based on what was available. The current fiscal year we're in was a hard one, Madam Chair, because it was the expiration of ARPA assistance funding, and the federal VOCA grant had not rebounded from the steep reductions that occurred. So given where we are right now, the branch has notified the subrecipients that there would be an extension of the funding, and the branch is calculating the available funding that can be distributed. Madam Chair, the ranking member correctly describes the landscape and the concern. The fiscal 25-26 budget includes additional earmarks. I believe there are 5 of them that were attempts to fill the gap created by the reduction in VOCA assistance. Those don't cover all the contractors, and those aren't funds that are kind of filling the gap in the funds that the judicial branch has available for VOCA assistance. They identify particular agencies to receive them. And they are, judicial branch is going to, it has opened up contracts to administer those state funds, and other executive branch agencies actually have done that for others. I hope that's helpful, but I'm happy to drill in a bit more, Madam Chair.
So I'm only allowed can you bring for us, I would like to understand what those 5 earmarks are,
Yep.
where they are. And I also would like to see a proposed distribution, because domestic violence is a third of our docket. It is a third of the cases that are out there, and I do not want to see that get diluted. I don't know if you two remember, but last year they made changes and they took money out and they gave it to CCADV significantly less, because CCADV thought they could do the processes that they were doing for less money, which I believe they can. But now that the VOCA funding is going to be severely reduced, there's a big concern in the domestic violence arena that they are not going to have the money that they need to help the victims. So this is of great import to me. I'd like to understand how it's going to be broken down with recognition of the court docket. So if you can bring that 5 earmarks, the totals of what we're looking at, how that money was being spent, how it was being distributed, I'd like to understand all of that for the work group session, please.
Yeah, I'd be happy to.
Thank
We'll
you.
gather that information for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. There is another piece of the budget that I don't see in here, and that's salary adjustments for judges. How many judges are we down right now?
I believe we're down 20. It may be 21 because a judge just became a judge trial referee.
Okay. And
And there are no raises for the judges in fiscal year 2027.
my understanding is that judges are asking for a raise. Is that true?
We asked the governor's office to include in his budget the adjustment to 4.6%, which was what was recommended by the Judicial Compensation Commission.
Yeah.
It was not incorporated in that budget.
And judges don't get a COLA, do they?
They do
A
not.
step or a COLA, whatever we are deciding to call it this year. And so 4.6% for judges and the other related people that get raises as a result of this would equate to what dollar amount, if you know that?
I'm going to defer to Brian on that.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, $2.3 million.
$2.3 million is just the judges.
That's just judicial branch judges and the associated judicial branch personnel, magistrates, judge trial referees, senior judges, but not the outside of judicial branch that are tied to the judges.
Thank you. Representative Walker.
You asked my first question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, it took me a few minutes to get together. So, in looking at judges around this area, are we keeping in line with the salaries for judges in this area? Because there was a concern that maybe we are going a little faster than we should, and I wanted to sort of follow up on that question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the National Center for State Courts does a survey of judicial salaries every year and benchmarks each state related to and adjusts it for cost of living. So as we know, the Northeast tends to have higher cost of living, but even with the 3.5% increase for this current fiscal year, which went into effect July 1, 2025, Connecticut judicial salaries placed 40th nationally. Over the past half a dozen years that we have testified in front of this committee, I think we have dropped from 35th to 40th, and that is even when there has been increases in many of those past half a dozen years. So, you know, asking for 4.6%, I wanted to add a little bit of commentary to the Commission's report in that for fiscal year 27, the Compensation Commission recommended an increase that was equal to the CPIU, which is an index of inflation, plus 2%, and capped at 4.6%. So the CPIU at the time we made the request was 2.7%, so we hit that cap. So just wanted to add some of the math behind that 4.6% request.
Thank you. I wanted to make sure, because we talk about this about every 2 years or so, and I want to make people understand that we're just trying to keep up with the trends to make sure that we can keep judges, because I mean, first we have to attract them, I guess that's the number one. Then the second part is to keep them. And I worry about that because, as many people say, things are slow in the courts and everything, but that's also because of the fact that we are down judges, and we need to make sure that our judges have enough support and things so that we can move the people's business in the courts.
One of the things that has been happening is this inversion, and in fact, the Superior Court judges now make less than the public sector attorneys that are appearing in front of them, including state's attorneys, the public defender, attorney generals. All make more than a Superior Court judge now.
Our attorney generals?
Yes.
Wow. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Okay, that's one. And I know we're going to have probate court in front of us later on, but the 3.6 that is in the budget, was that amount your amount in choosing for the reduction in their budget?
I'm sorry, could you just clarify that?
The probate court is going to be before us later on.
Yes.
And so the probate court, we go through this every year, and we try to figure out a sweet spot for the separation of some of the monies to help cover the other expenses. So because of that, is that done by, did you guys work with probate on this number, or is this OPM's number?
I'm not, we do typically try to align, at least in the way that we're recommending or putting a number in there. As to the specifics, I think you may be referring to probate court judges.
No, the court administrator.
The court
She's looking at the 3.6 that was taken out of the budget by the governor.
The 3.6 million, okay, I'm sorry. I will, I'll have to defer to the probate court administrator for that question.
Okay, all right, okay. I just wasn't sure, because sometimes there's always a question on that one. And there is a current services for the recovery beds. Can you explain to us what the recovery beds are? I think that's important. I think it's something really worthwhile. What's wrong? I'm only allowed to ask
No,
one
we don't
que-
know where you are on your sheet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We're trying to figure out.
They
we're
understood.
Trying to stay.
It's a current services adjust funding to reflect current requirements. And when we asked about the OE for the 1.8 million, they identified them as recovery beds that you guys are maintaining. Is that correct?
Yes, Madam Chair, I think you're referring to the adjustment in the governor's budget that totals 2.6 million, which was related to the substance use disorder, a portion of which, $740,000, is set in that funding to continue existing residential treatment program called recovery house beds for those that are
Right.
recovering from substance use
My bad,
disorders.
yep.
And it's important to note there that that program, the funding for those beds was sustained initially by ARPA dollars, which will expire on 12/31 of 2026. The $740,000 represents 6 months of funding to continue those beds through the end of this fiscal year.
Do you have a waiting list on those recovery beds? You don't know?
I'll have to ask my colleague, Gary Roberge, who may be
Yeah.
able to provide some information on that.
Because we've been hearing that there's a shortage of the beds, and that's really concerning, and I was happy to see that this was being maintained. I just wondered, was it being maintained at the amount that really we could use in that regard? Okay. Oh,
Gary's right there.
yes. Yes.
I have a
Thank-
very good team.
Yes, you do. You have an excellent team, and I didn't say good morning, I'm sorry. I was trying to go from one camera to another. Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Gary Roberge. I'm the Executive Director of the Court Support Services Division in the Judicial Branch. And your question, Madam Chair, is the fact that we're list for all of our residential beds across the network. So our substance abuse residential beds that we're talking about.
Your mic is not.
Yeah, oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Would you do me a favor and reintroduce yourself?
I
please?
will. So I'm Gary Roberge. Good morning. I'm Gary Roberge, the Executive Director of the Court Support Services Division in the Judicial Branch. And Madam Chair, I was saying that we do in fact have wait lists across all of our residential programs. We're talking specifically here about our substance abuse programs that we partner with Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services on. And yes, we do have a wait list there, and with our transitional housing across, as you noted, across all of our residential programs.
Okay, if you could just get us sort of an idea of what your
Absolutely.
what your
Provide that
wait
to the
list is
worker.
like. I don't, I think we should also try and get some support from opioid settlement. That's what this is for. So that's why, when I saw that, I was like, why aren't we getting any money from opioid settlement? Because we've heard that there is a need for more beds. And I was really happy to see that, but we have funds, let's use it for the funds that we know we could get it for something.
And a good percentage of those on the wait list right now are in the Department of Corrections, waiting for a bed to open, right?
We definitely, could we get those numbers?
Absolutely, yeah.
And when you said that they're on a wait list, I guess this would be for Department of Corrections, but yeah, I would like to get that information from you, if possible.
Absolutely.
Please. And so I think that's all I have. Now I go by.
Are there any other questions? Representative Candelaria, followed by Representative Nuccio.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick question. In regards to the Appropriations Act compliance, if you can just provide us with a brief detail how that's going to be implemented, and if for the working group, just provide more of extensive detail on that.
I'm going to defer to Brian on that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Candelaria. If I could just clarify, this is the Consolidated Appropriations Act portion of the governor's budget?
That's correct.
Yes, so this is a project that we've been working collaboratively across government, Department of Social Services, OPM, the Judicial Branch, and others in government, including outside consultants. This is a project that's required by federal law for the Judicial Branch and, quite frankly, many others in state government to begin to bill Medicaid for certain services, as it relates to the judicial branch, services that are already being delivered by judicial branch employees and by judicial branch contractors. And so this is, billing for Medicaid represents a new frontier for the judicial branch. Judicial branches aren't typically medical providers who provide Medicaid billing. And so we've been working closely with OPM to identify the startup for this project is July 1, 2026, to identify resource needs, both contractual and state employee resource needs, in order to spool up an infrastructure to support that billing process, which is going to include technical resources, billing information systems, making sure the information systems can talk across government to support this billing project, but also it's envisioned that Medicaid dollars that come back to the state will then be reinvested back into additional services. This just represents an initial kind of startup, just over $1 million. I think that's what you're referring to. Represents 12 positions in the judicial branch across our operational units, our legal unit, and our information technology division that will allow us to get the ball rolling on July 1st such that we can meet that federal mandate.
All set, Representative?
No, one more. Just to follow up on that, as I look at the language, let me find it here. It talks about that it will provide targeted case management and periodic screening, diagnostics, and treatment to eligible juveniles within 30 days of their release from incarceration. I don't know if you have information on that piece at all that you can provide us now. If not, at a working session will be fine.
Sure, I can provide you just kind of maybe a broad overview, and then we can bring more detail and maybe some examples. So the targeted case management is work that our employees are already providing. Think of it as case planning for kids that may be coming out of facilities, making sure that they have all the appropriate services in place. And as I mentioned, these are services that are currently being done. It's just we are going to be billing for those and getting federal reimbursement. In terms of some of the other services, it could include medical services that are delivered to kids while they're in residential centers that we would then be seeking reimbursement through Medicaid for. But we can perhaps provide some case examples to give you a little bit more detail.
That'll be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you,
set,
Madam
sir?
Chair.
Representative Nuccio?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to follow up what was just asked, where is that reimbursement reflected?
So I'll need to defer exact details to other state partners, but DSS is our hub for Medicaid billing. So I believe there's going to be a process of us feeding information through DSS, them seeking the reimbursement, funds coming back, and then OPM also being in the mix in terms of how the funding comes back for reinvestment.
Okay, so that $1 million is net of the reimbursement.
Well, the $1 million is kind of an upfront because the reimbursement the reimbursable services don't start until July 1st.
Okay, so we would expect to see a reduction in following years then, to be based off of the reimbursement amount? Technically, if we're going to look at reimbursement, we should be looking at the net, right? So this is the cost minus what we're reimbursed. What's the actual net cost to the state? That's what I'm looking for here.
Yep. So if I could gather some of that information, some of the logistics of the flow of the money for the work group.
I appreciate that. And then the question that I was going to ask, because I was just handed a little an email from somebody in your organization there regarding the Regions program. I was wondering if you could tell me about the Regions program, where that is in this budget, what that does and represents.
Sure. So I think many on this committee are familiar with the struggles that we have had, as I count now, over 8 years of trying to find appropriate siting for a facility to house young people under the age of 18 who are in need of secure residential confinement in a therapeutic setting. And so since the transfer of the committed adjudicated youth from the Department of Children and Families to the Judicial Branch in 2018, we have put out more than 6 RFPs for these services, and we have been unsuccessful in finding a vendor to deliver the services, but more importantly, a facility in which to deliver those services. And so the judicial branch has worked with other state partners, OPM primarily, and DAS to tour and look at a number of facilities, probably over 30 different facilities over the last 8 years. And we have a not yet executed, I'll say pending sale agreement for a building that's suitable, that will require a number of years of build out. So it is not a move-in condition type of building, but it is a very suitable location in the eastern part of the state that will house, up to 18 young people who are currently being serviced in our state residential facilities in Hartford and Bridgeport, which were not designed to provide longer-term residential care for young people. And so the second part of your question, Representative Nuccio, was where would we find that in this budget? And so the cost to acquire this property will be capital funds, and that was included as a bond authorization a couple of fiscal years ago, and we have drawn down an initial draw on that, and we'll be seeking additional dollars from the bond commission to draw off of that to execute the sale of the property, hopefully in the next 60 days. And then operating funds, which is probably the most important piece of the equation here, operating funds request from the judicial branch will come not next biennium, but in the biennium that includes 2030 and 2031.
Are these dollars, is this something that would be reflected in a town's pilot, as an offset for taxes?
I'll have to gather the information for that question. I'm not sure.
Okay, I think we have a lot to talk about regarding this one here specifically, but yeah, if you can bring in the information that you can find to the work group, I would appreciate it.
Will do. Thank you, Representative Nuccio.
Are there any other comments or questions? So there has been talk yesterday and today amongst colleagues about the victim's advocate in the courts. And victim's advocate is in a different budget line item. Do you hire any victim's advocate within the confines of the judicial budget at all? Do you set the number of victims advocates that are in the courts at all? And if so, how do you determine that?
So I think we can speak to the victim service advocates that are employed by the judicial branch, and not anyone who may be through the office of the victim advocate.
Yep.
We do have a job title. If the chief court administrator would allow Mark Pelka to come back, I think he can provide information about how many of those, and their compensation is set through collective bargaining.
Okay.
So they are judicial branch employees.
That would be perfect. Just because the different titles flow back and forth in different agencies, we want to make sure that we're understanding that. And I know that Senator Marks may have a follow-up question relative to that.
Thank you,
Hi,
Madam-
thank you for being here.
You want to have him answer the question first?
Oh,
and then-
sure, yeah.
Then we might get an answer, but then you go ahead.
Madam Chair, Judicial Branch Office of Victim Services is proud to employ about 40 victim services advocates, and they cover, there is at least one advocate in every adult JD and GA court, or Part A or Part B, and there are 2 victim services advocates who work in juvenile matters. They apply a regional approach, and those advocates are supervised by 4 victim services supervisors. They provide backup, supervision, and support, again, in a regional way. Victim services advocates also work in the Board of Pardons and Paroles. There are 3 who are assigned there as well. And then we have a program manager who oversees it. The advocates collect and enter statistics in Excel spreadsheets regarding number of victims served and information about services delivered. That, combined with our use of judicial branch statistics, helps us to inform the distribution of staff across the courts and other locations based on need.
But every court has an advocate.
Senator Marks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I actually just got some texts from my friends that work state's attorneys, and I said, do you need the victim's advocate put back in New London? And I got yes, 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 ASAP. So I would ask, why was the victim's advocate taken from New London? And are there any plans to put it back? And if not, so I will definitely talk to the chairs of this committee about having that done.
I'd be happy to elaborate, Madam Chair. We, in the New London Judicial District, there is one victim services advocate who handles Part A, the most serious cases that generally come before the court, 2 advocates who handle Part B in New London GA, and then 1 who handles Norwich Part B. There used to be 2 advocates in New London Part A, and as part of the review of the caseload, we recognized that there was not a second advocate handling Bridgeport Part B or a second advocate working in New Haven Part A. Part B of Bridgeport contains a substantial number of cases, including more serious ones than are found in other GAs across the state, which was a reason, along with the volume. And New Haven Part A not only handles, again, a large caseload, but also an increasing number of post-conviction cases where the advocates have the ability to help victims to receive information and navigate the appellate, sentence modification, sentence review, and other options. So that was a particular challenge confronting those 2 courts, which helped to inform some redistribution that occurred within our victim services advocates, through you, Madam Chair.
So our victims advocates went to New Haven or Bridgeport, you redistributed. So it sounds like we might need additional victims advocates added. Much appreciated, thank you.
Could you get us the distribution of the victim service advocates so that we understand how many victim service advocates there are?
Yes.
And which courts they are in, which jurisdictions, and what are the statutory numbers for positions as victim service advocates? That would be very helpful for us to have that data so that we're looking at it comprehensively and seeing where we are, and include the number of cases that each victim service advocates has a potential to be involved in, so that we understand all of that gamut that has to do with victim service advocates. Because we were asked that question yesterday, and the victim's advocate has an office, but that's different than the victim service advocates. And I think that they're getting conflated with each other, and I think we need to make sure that we are understanding what that is. So victim services advocates are in Judicial alone. Victims advocates is a special review process that stands in a separate, in the OGA, the Office of Government Accountability. So they do different things too.
Yeah.
Okay, great. I just want to make sure we have it down so that we're doing this right. So when it came up yesterday, it was a question.
Can I just ask, can I ask one more
Well,
question?
I got her.
Can I just ask one question? So how does the victim advocate in OGA interact with the victim advocate in the court?
Service advocates,
Victim.
different title.
Just different title?
Yes, through Madam Chair, the Office of Victim Advocate provides information and awareness about victim rights in Connecticut. They assist victims with exercising their rights. That can be a victim maybe raising a concern or a question, and they will assist. The victim services advocates are assigned as judicial branch employees to locations across the state to assist victims with navigating the process that is before them, be it a juvenile matters, adult court, or Board of Pardons and Parole. So they essentially will review dockets, will receive requests from victims, will partner with other officials to help that victim understand the process before them, be it accessing services, information about rights, even help with the impact statement. So that the victim wishes to speak at that point in the court proceeding, that advocate can be by their side.
Okay, I'm good now, because I've heard about it.
Representative
Thank you, Madam
Johnson
Chair.
first, and then I'll come back to you.
Thank you,
Representative
Madam
Johnson
Chair.
for the first
Appreciate
time.
it. Yes, and thank you for your remarks. focused on the Board of Pardons and Paroles, and I just wondered, could you, I know that Senator Austin did a great job of asking you to, spell these things out. Could you give more detail about how the victims advocates work with the Board of Pardons and Paroles, how much influence they have when someone has been, in that area and gone from, being in the Corrections Department and then over to Board of Pardons and Paroles?
Thank you, Madam Chair. There's a statute that assigns staff from the Judicial Branch Office of Victim Services to the Board of Pardons and Paroles, and there are 3 dedicated and diligent advocates who work there. They provide an array of information and advocacy. They're embedded, they actually work in the Board of Pardons and Paroles. They have workspace, they have phones, they have Judicial Branch computers, and they have Board of Pardons and Paroles computers. So they will, when they, victims come to them from a whole variety of ways. Victims may get a notification, the person who harmed you is up for a parole hearing or a commutation hearing. You want more information, these are advocates who will be there to help you. They'll walk them through what to expect. They'll explain how the processes will proceed. If the victim has concerns and needs of services, they can make referrals. They can help develop a safety plan. They'll be by their side again if they choose to deliver a statement to the board if they're eligible. But essentially, it's 3 staff who work throughout the year in the Board of Pardons and Paroles to help victims with any issues that come forward. And
Just say the person that was so injured that they are unable to, say, go to the victim's advocate, and they've just been so hurt by the person who's now going to the Board of Pardons and Paroles. How is that addressed with the Board of Pardons and Paroles and the victim advocates?
3, Madam.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we're talking the same, because these are 2 titles that are similar in space. We're talking about with him the victim service advocate, which is different than the victim's advocate. Okay, so if everyone could use the right titles so that we're not conflating the 2 titles, so that right now we can answer the question for the victim service advocate, and later on we do have the victim's advocate budget in front of us, and we could ask maybe similar questions. So I just want to make sure that we are asking the correct questions for the correct job classification, please.
Thank you.
Your
Thank you.
floor is yours.
I take your guidance, Madam Chair, too. So I usually say Victim Services Advocates or VSAs. And so the good representative raises a good question about someone's difficulty actually participating in a Board of Pardons and Paroles hearing because of injuries or trauma or other reasons, if I heard the Madam's question correctly. All of the Board of Pardons and Paroles hearings are held virtually for paroles and for commutations, so they're on teams. So, and our advocates actually offer victims the ability either to appear and deliver a statement or to prepare a written statement that our advocates would read. The representative raises a good question about trauma or physical injury. OVS is proud to operate a victim compensation program, which will provide financial assistance to victims with the cost of attending hearings. For example, they have to miss work, but also if there's medical bills and there's an eligible offense and eligible expense, we can assist them with that. So those 2 parts of our operation will work together. An advocate with the victim through the proceeding, financial assistance if they have an eligible expense that we can help them with.
All set, Representative? Representative, you're up, and then Senator Summers will be up after you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick question, Justice. On your testimony, item number 3, paragraph, uncertainty, that caught my attention. Specifically, when you talk about additional terms related to immigration enforcement and DEI activities added to funding opportunity notice and individual awards. You've been having conversations with the Attorney General's office about
Yes.
this as well. And we don't need to provide me a full response today. I am a little bit concerned about that because that will definitely impact your budget, right? It is uncertain to know what grants will be cut. It's hard to determine that, but I'm assuming that you must have an idea, or you're looking at specific line items within your budget that might be hit because of any federal cuts in regards to this. Have you guys signed any new agreements with the new current language that you're concerned with?
Brian will know the answer to that, but If he doesn't, we will get you that information.
So I can provide a list of anything that we have signed. I believe when we are executing agreements, there is a language that we've been advised by the Attorney General to be inserted in to protect us, but we can provide more details on that if we're able at the work group meeting, in addition to any recent contracts under these conditions.
And also to know what grants you feel will be in jeopardy of being cut. I think that's important as well.
Yep, we will do that. We have a whole inventory of our federal funding, and as our testimony says, we haven't seen anything drop yet, but we are our folks are daily watching the portal to look for changes.
All right, thank you for that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator Summers?
Yes, good morning. My question is, how does the victim's advocate, which is used during, if I'm understanding this correctly, during the court proceeding, I actually sat through a triple homicide from my district, and I spent a lot of time with the victim's advocate. And then there's a proceeding, and then years later, if somebody is convicted of the crime, then they go in front of the Board of Pardon and Paroles, and then there's the victim services advocate. Does the victim service advocate ever interface with the original victim's advocate so that there's some kind of continuum for the family or the victim of the crime? How does that work?
We have somebody else coming up to the table. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Senator raises a really good point about the cases where victim services advocate, or VSA, works with the victim during the court period. Then in the future, there is a Board of Pardons and Paroles hearing. Luckily, the staff all fall under the same roof. So the Board of Pardons and Parole advocate will often contact the victim services advocate, who perhaps work with that victim and the family at the original, to see if there is information available in the case that can be used to be more proactive and trauma-informed, to reduce the amount of work that victim will have to do to describe the case. And that's the collaboration that we currently have, and we'd like actually to enhance, because the victims that we serve do run through a continuum. And
So if I can just follow up with that really quickly, is, in particular, I've dealt with families where they, have been through the system, and they talk about their re-traumatization every time a person comes up in front of the Board of Pardon and Paroles. They have to go through the trial again and again and again. And so having that service, I think, is critical. One of the things that I'm concerned about, and I'm just throwing this out there, is that the victim service advocate in New London was moved to Norwich, and we used to have two, now we have one. I think it's really important that we reconsider bringing one back to New London. They have the majority and try the majority of the larger, more violent crimes, and there's a great need there. So I'm just throwing that out there. Thank you. And thank you for your answer.
Thank you, Representative Nuccio, as long as we don't short Norwich on things.
Mine is pretty simple. I'm doing a pretty deep dive this year into the budget and into the line items. I was wondering if you could just please bring to the work group, if you already have anything prepared or something is quick enough. I'd like to understand all the different line items that are in here and what exactly these programs do, how we're evaluating them, and how many people they're serving.
We will bring those to the work group.
Thank you so much. Told ya.
She told me it was going to be quick.
Told her. Like,
It's never quick with her. That's what I say. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you. No more questions. You're all set.
Thank you so much for your consideration.
Thank you. Up next, we have the Department of Corrections, Commissioner Quiros, Deputy Commissioner Carlos, and a host of other people. If you could take your seats up here, we'd appreciate it. Good morning, Commissioner.
Good morning.
It's a pleasure to see you.
It's great to see you too.
Why don't you just dive right into it? We don't need to have a whole bunch of happy to see you. We are all happy to see you here. And we can move on. And just so whomever has our computer upplay, there's housing committee meeting thing that's hanging out there. If somebody could fix that, that would be really good. One of you IT people can help him out, if there is an IT person here. Go ahead, Commissioner, floor is yours.
So, good morning, Senator Austin, Representative Walker, Senator Summers, Representative Nuccio, and members of the Appropriation Committee. I am Major Kiros, Commissioner of the Department of Correction. On behalf of the Department of Correction, I thank you for the opportunity to come before you to discuss the Governor's FY27 budget adjustments. I am confident with the support of the Governor, the Legislative, and the Judicial branches, sister agency, community partners, and the hardworking men and women of the Connecticut Department of Correction, we will successfully succeed in our efforts to fulfill our mission and our mandates. The Governor's budget provides $16 million in additional funding to broadly support the Department of Corrections. This includes adjustments and appropriations to align with the expenditure levels, reflecting $3 million in personal service, $9 million in other expense, and $2.2 million in inmate services. Within the capital budget, new funding authorization of $10 million will support security enhancement across the facilities, building on a $55 million existing in FY 2027 authorization. Healthcare remains our second largest expenditure around after custody operation. The governor's budget proposed for FY27 funding is related to healthcare for the DOC population at about $152 million, excluding benefits and hospitalization costs. The governor's budget continued to support efforts to improve healthcare outcome services to the justice-involved population. The governor's proposed budget for the agency includes funding for a third deputy commissioner who will focus on healthcare strategies and transformation efforts to address the needs of the incarcerated population under the care and custody of the department. This leadership is critical as the state continues to pursue transformational investments, including compliance with Federal Consolidated Appropriation Act 2023, the Medical Justice Involved Waiver, and efforts to examine healthcare utilization with the goal of improving access care to and health outcomes. Supported by $1 million to the DOC and Department of Social Service Office, OPM will continue current cross-section efforts to examine inpatient, hospitalization, and outpatient visits with the aim of improving healthcare quality and outcomes, funding efficiencies in the care of the population, and providing enhanced guidance and holistic care management for the incarcerated population. These efforts will seek to determine basic standards of utilization by the building on DSS partnership with the Administrative Services Organization that performs similar work for the Medicare enrollees. Through this analysis of DSS and the DOC data, the ASO will seek to gain an understanding of the prevalence of the reasons for hospital admission of the incarcerated population and those recently released from incarceration. DOC and the Judicial branch are also actively working to prepare and to comply with the section of 5121, the Federal Consolidation Appropriation Act of 2023. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today, and I will be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Appreciate that. I have a couple questions to start off. And a number of years ago, probably about 4 or 5 right now, you provided an analysis of your medical services and mental health services and said, we are in need of additional staff in a number of areas. I mean, in my opinion is not the, I'm not the only one who believes this, but we closed down our state psychiatric institutions, and essentially judges have no other place to send anybody, so they send them to you, and you and your staff are responsible to handle people with different levels of required care. So have you been able to, based on what was sent to us before, and I have it, so I could resend it to you, can you go through that and see if any of those positions have been filled in the last 4 or 5 years? I have not seen a significant increase in medical and mental health staff, and I'm not certain if I just am misreading the position. So that is my first question, if you don't mind.
That was Public Act 22-133, a very detailed 40-page report that identified the resources, equipment, and space needed, not just for the medical service, but also for the mental health service. And it was very detailed, and it was like a roadmap how we can get to better outcomes. The only positions that I've gotten when we took over UConn in 2019, we came over with about 650 positions. Last year, when I testified before this committee, we were up to 752 positions. Those were conversations that I had with OPM, the Office of Policy Management, to get me those positions approved. Today, we sit here with 702 positions in the mental health service. So from last year, we have dropped about 50 positions in the medical service. And furthermore, for 2025, we only hired 21 LPNs and RNs for the calendar year 2025.
So, and there's been a lot of changes that have happened within the confines of who is incarcerated and the population we have. It's no secret, I worked there for 21 years. We had 21 facilities at one time, and I think we're down to 13 or so. Most of the ones that are left are our celled environments, which require more staff because they're a celled environment and they require higher level numbers of staff. Most of the ones that closed were our dorm environments, and I've worked in both. And so I really, and I remember when we handled inmate medical, I used to give out medicine from souffle cups. That happened. We've made a lot of changes. Maybe not all that need to be made, but we've made a lot of changes. I want to recognize that we've made a significant number of changes, but I think we need to do a better job. And there are a couple of things that concern me about the conversations that are had relative to the staff. Are your staff given a list of everybody who is chronically mentally ill in the units that they're working in? Do they get noticed when someone is chronically mentally ill by the medical staff? Or is that usually considered a HIPAA violation and they might not necessarily know who they're working with?
It could be considered a HIPAA violation. However, I mean, if you're in Gardner and you're working the IPM, you know that the medical score is a 5, which is the most severe.
Right.
If you're in Gardner, you work in certain housing units that are a mental health level 4 individuals, you know they're being seen by the clinician weekly. If you're working at Osborne and they have mental health 3 on the G block, you know you're working with a mental health population, but we don't have a list with the medication and chronic illness. But based on the medical scores, the staff are able to determine who are those who's critical.
So are they given training on how to handle, are they given psychiatric training on how to handle folks that have mental health issues?
Yes.
Are those staff sent to school or sent to a training facility? Because unlike what other facilities may have, they don't necessarily receive the correct training relative to the population that is now in the Department of Correction.
Yeah. There are training both for correctional officer and for mental health. I can get you the more details in the curriculum on them.
Please do.
In my opinion, there needs to be more.
I agree with you 100%, 150%. I agree with you. I also think that there needs to be an understanding, because when again, I'm going back to my own experience, we had HIV and AIDS that were marked, and we stopped doing this. They were marked with a red dot. And we stopped doing that because we didn't want people to be discriminated against. But when we're not giving people the opportunity to understand what's going on with an incarcerated person, then we're not really helping the staff that are responsible for the day-to-day care, whether someone goes and eats dinner, whether someone takes a shower, whether they do come out for recreation or any of those sorts of things. I don't see us really giving the opportunity to staff to handle their grave responsibilities that they have right now.
Agreed.
And so I'm going to have other questions, and I try to stick to the two question rule, but I'm going to be asking a ton of questions today because I want people to understand the significant responsibility that you have right now for some of our most at-risk people in the state. Because Garner does not take care of women, Garner does not take care of juveniles, and I commissioned a report that the Sentencing Commission did identifying that 28% of male inmates are chronically mentally ill, sans substance use disorder, without being substance use disorder. Females, 80% chronically mentally ill, sans substance use disorder. So you have become the psychiatric institution for the state of Connecticut, and I think we need to recognize that. I am all for changing the name to the Department of Corrections and Psychiatric Institution if we're going to continue to do this, because there needs to be a recognition of the policy changes. And the policy change did not happen just here in Connecticut. We changed it, the federal government changed it, and we ended up with the responsibilities, and you have ended up with the responsibilities, and you have a very difficult population who is often very at risk, and I want people to understand that we have made you the state psychiatric institution without the protective staff associated with that. Representative Walker.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, gentlemen, for coming before us today. And as my colleague pointed out, it is not a job that people understand, I think, in any degree, because of the things that we have not supported you with in going forward and trying to address the population and address how they come back to our communities. So one of the things that I'm very interested in is focusing on the services that are going outside of your facility, the community services that are there.
Well,
Do you have, I would like to get, maybe probably, because I know you don't have it, but I'd like to get a list of all the community services that you have out there. I'd like to know your waiting list to get people out and where they go, because I also understood, especially we just had Judicial and we talked about some of their beds that they have for substance abuse, and a lot of the people coming out of your facility are waiting to get into their facilities, and they're going to provide us with the waiting list. We need to understand where the people are being kept and how they're being addressed, because if we just move them from spot to spot without addressing, we know that I'm preaching to the choir. So when we talk about your community services, give me at least some ideas on what you think you need in community services right now. Yes.
So right now, we have, for community services, we have 26 vendors that we do business with. It's about 1,153 beds that are in the community. Out of the 1,153 beds, 853 are for work release programs, individuals that come out to work. Another 243 beds are apartments for wraparound services that we have. It can be from anywhere from 3 months to 6 months that the individual is there, and we help them out. So if individuals in a halfway house and they need a couple more months to have the money for the deposit, we'll transition them from a halfway house to one of those apartments. We need more beds when it comes to the female population. Definitely need more beds for the mental health. We need to be prepared that when we go out to an RFP in the coming, I believe, year, that those beds are going to be more expensive because of the everything going up besides utilities and everything. So it's concerning that we may lose some of those 1,100 beds. Right now, we have close to 200 individuals on the waiting list for a halfway house. But understand that 200, an individual becomes eligible 18 months before discharge. So if that package is done 18 months with the discharge, that individual is approved, that individual is placed in a halfway house, but that individual will not be will remain in that waiting list until probably 6 or 9 months before the discharge date. So, so that number 200 can be kind of misleading. So I don't have 200 individuals that are ready to go out right now. You know.
And the other thing, we're appropriations, so we look at the dollars.
Yeah.
The cost of retaining them in your facility, what is your per diem cost? I'll give it to
We
you.
don't have that right now, but
165. That was what I quote was.
oh, for the daily cost?
Yeah. Mhm.
About 160.
The 88? You're looking for our per diem for the correctional facility?
Yes.
Yes. You have.
Yep.
See it. Here. So this is the composite.
All right, so the agency is about $164 in one sense. Bridgeport is 187. When you go to Gardner, it's 263 because that's the mental health facility. When you go to York, it's about $228 a day.
And when we send somebody to a facility, a community services program, what's the average per diem cost for those? Do you have an idea?
Say that again? I don't have that information, but I'm going to assume it's less, way cheaper.
Considerably less,
Yes.
approximately $100 a day.
Yes.
At the high end.
Correct.
So if we are looking at the economic impacts of it, we have not really measured it. And that's the issue that I think we're not doing things to improve the quality or save money. We're just holding things and holding things and holding things and not moving people out and not giving them the training or any other things so that they can be self-sufficient. So we need to change this process badly. So I'm not going to be political, and I'm just going to go with that. Okay. With that, Senator Winfield.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Apologies, I'm under the weather, so I can't be with you. To Senator Austin's question about mental health, you know, we have to spend more or less money depending on the way our policies lay out to achieve similar goals, right? So I guess when you answered her question about HIPAA and whether or not these things were a HIPAA violation, I don't know what your answer means. You said that it may be a violation, but my question is, how do you function procedurally? Because what I know is there are exceptions to HIPAA in the prison, and those are safety exemptions for either inmates, staff, or your corrections officers. And so, what I would like to know is, how do you make determinations about the safety as it relates to HIPAA? Because, for instance, if one of your COs doesn't, or if some of your staff don't know that there are mental health issues, they will likely treat folks as if they don't have those issues, and the treatment should be different, right? And that does impact safety both of the inmate and of the CO. And it may also lead to us feeling as though we need more folks to do the same job. So I'd like you all just to do a breakdown for me of how you actually make those determinations, what policies you have that connect to that. And as you know, I have a ton of questions, but I'll ask you probably most of those questions in my other capacity.
Okay, we'll definitely get you that information. When I answered the previous to Senator Alston, when I refer to the HIPAA violation, it is a HIPAA violation to be broadcasting in the housing units what medication the individuals are on, so the correction officers won't get that. But there is communications with the mental health staff and that unit officer to be observant for certain behaviors or follow-up checkups. But yeah, we will get you the information you're requesting. I got staff members here that are taking notes and get you that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any more, sir? Senator Winfield, any more questions?
No, maybe after others.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Representative Nuccio.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So Senator Austin mentioned a report that you guys had done looking at what you needed for resources and such. So my two questions, one of them is there's $1 million in here for a fund for health services innovation pilot. And then we have the commissioner on there also. Why do we need to redo this if we have the information currently of what we need to improve the health of the prisoners?
With your permission, I'm going to allow my chief financial officer to answer that, please.
Please do.
It's for a different purpose. The $1 million that's in there is an analytical study of health data. It's not a staffing or treatment study. It has to do with looking at pre, during, and post-incarceration hospitalization rates. And it's a joint project between the Office of Policy and Management, the Department of Social Services, and the Department of Correction. What we're trying to do is look at the data both within the department's medical records as well as data that DSS has on hospitalizations for this population, again, pre, during, and post, to see what we can learn with regard to what possible interventions would be available to mitigate or lower those hospitalization rates. One of the things that we've spoken about numerous times when we've come before you is the fact that when people come into our custody, they're generally in poor health. They're in poorer health than the average person in the community. And we do our best to improve that situation for them, and I would say we're largely successful with that. And then what happens is they discharge, and they go back out into the community, and there is a lack of continuity of care, and they relapse, they fall back, their health, they stop taking medications, they stop seeking medical help, and oftentimes they end up back in our custody because of those issues, because they're not making appropriate judgments out in the community, and they become reincarcerated, or they end up costing the state money through emergency room visits. So what we're trying to do is, again, use the data that's available to see what inferences we can draw from that data to determine appropriate interventions within the department, but also outside of the department through the community health centers and the like.
So this is shared between the three areas, but the total expense of it is hitting DOC then, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then the second question that I have is, in adjusting to reflect current requirements, I noticed the biggest number is $9 million in OE. I was wondering if you could either detail that out, exactly what that is by breakdown, or maybe bring that to the work group. But I'd like to understand what the $9 million is specifically.
The $9 million reflects the deficit that we've had in the previous year. What happens generally with agencies is if they have a deficit going.
Oh, no, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. That part I understand. I understand that it's a deficit. I want to understand what is driving the deficit. What makes up that $9 million?
Essentially, it's premise repair, premise supplies. Our buildings are old. This fiscal year alone, we've had, I think, 6 water main breaks. We had a mouse situation at one of our facilities that needed addressing. We had a Legionella situation that needed addressing. We had a sewage line break within a housing unit that needed addressing. These are all very expensive things. With the weather that we've been having, lots of roof leaks. That's really what is the big driver, followed by pharmaceutical costs and general inflation. Our food is more expensive, clothing is more expensive, supplies are more expensive. We've had on our medical side, we've had a large increase in medical transport expenditures. Basically, the cost of doing business in the world right now is significantly more expensive than it was last year, which was more expensive than the year before.
Okay, if you could bring the breakdown of how all of that breaks down, I
We can
think
show you
some of
the year-over-year increases in all those categories.
Well, and some of the premise stuff, I think, maybe could be handled through bonding since it's large item stuff.
And
especially if it's a roof
it does, but a lot of these have to happen on an emergency basis. So if you have a water main break, you can't wait for the bond commission. If your roof is leaking, you can't wait for the bond commission. If you have mice coming in from the junkyard next door, you can't wait for the bond commission. These are things that have to happen immediately, and especially if you have a sewer break. And we had a $15,000 cleanup bill from that. These things are not inexpensive.
No, but they're also not ongoing. So that's why I think if we're looking at capital expenses, I think we need to have maybe a capital expenses classification rather than, you're not going to have those every single year. So I don't know that necessarily belongs in
Given the size of our facilities and our operation, we're going to have calamities that happen. They're not necessarily going to happen at the same facilities, but they're going to happen system-wide. Our buildings our youngest building is, well, how old is 34 years. Our oldest building's over 100 years. And these are buildings that are in operation 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. They get a lot of hard use. And people are hard things to house.
No, I understand all that.
And-
I'm just
and-
saying
and
that if
it's-
this is an ongoing thing, then we should be able to see that and show that, right? And if it's something that is longer term, like a roof, we should be able to see that also. So all I'm saying is a $9 million increase in 1 year. I'd like to understand that. I'd like to see what's driving that. If they're saying this is happening every single year and we need a $9 million increase to cover these kinds of things, it should be easy enough to provide that information. That's all I'm requesting.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Can I just ask, do you have a maintenance budget?
Yes.
You do have a maintenance budget.
Fit
Okay.
into the OE.
Okay, all right, because I was trying, and on the medical part, you talked about the money, the $1 million is to help you collect the medical, the stats on the clients that are within your oversight. Is that correct?
It's not to collect the data, it's to examine data that exists.
So you have been collecting data?
We have an electronic health record.
Okay.
Electronic healthcare record system, like all hospitals and doctor's offices. So we collect that data. We're going to be looking through that. But there's also data that the Department of Social Services has on Medicaid clients. Every time one of our inmates is hospitalized, it comes off of our budget and goes onto the state Medicaid budget because they become Medicaid eligible for hospitalization. So that data, it doesn't necessarily reside with us, it resides with DSS. And they also have data on individuals post-incarceration in the community, and in some cases if they've been part of the public health care system. And so it's a look at existing data. There may be proposals for additional data collection that come out of this, but right now it is an existing data analysis.
Okay, thank you. Juan? Representative Candelaria.
That's my name. That's good. Hello, Commissioner. How are you today?
Morning.
Good morning. When I look at when I was looking at the budget, I see that there is an allocation for $200,000 for a new deputy commissioner position to oversee inmate medical. I just want to get a little bit of understanding around what that person's responsibility would be. Because my understanding is currently you have a chief medical officer, you have a chief operating officer, and you have a deputy commissioner that oversees inmate medical. So I just want to wrap my head a little bit around the position and what is the function of that individual.
Correct. Okay, so there is a line item budget for a deputy commissioner to oversee the medical unit. The current deputy commissioner, Sharonda Carlos, who's here to my left, that is one area out of 13 areas that she supervised. It is my hope that that deputy commissioner that's coming in is external, not internal, and with an MD, degree, so that he or she can advise me and take a real good comprehensive look on the practices and what needs to, and how we can enhance the process.
So if I understand correctly, she has other responsibilities. You will probably remove that particular responsibility, have one person oversee inmate medical completely.
Correct. And it's in conversations with the governor's office too. I mean, this is inmate medical service high on their list. And they want to make sure that I have somebody there that understands the with an MD background to assist us in moving the agency first. So, I mean, so it's getting a lot of attention, the health service, not only for the advocates, but from the media, but also from the governor's office. So it's a start to have the right personnel on my executive team. And DC Carlos is doing a fantastic job, but she doesn't have an MD background though, so.
Okay. Now the chief medical position available, do they have any type of functions overseeing the program at all?
Yep. DC Carlos, you want to speak on that?
Good morning. Can you repeat the question, please?
Yes.
You have to identify yourself.
Good morning. Good morning. Happy Tuesday. Sharonda Carlos, Deputy Commissioner of Administration for the Department of Correction.
Yes, I'm trying to get an understanding around the $200,000 that's being requested for the deputy commissioner to oversee inmate medical. But I also see that you have a chief medical officer. What is his responsibilities? Isn't overseeing the inmate medical program part of his responsibilities?
Thank you so much for that question. Currently, we have a Chief Operating Officer, Dr. Robert Richardson, that oversees, and then we have a MD that falls under him in our organizational chart. So, which is, they both are here, Dr. Kennedy. So Dr. Kennedy oversees the portion in looking at the services that are provided, looking at preventative practices, also intervention practices. But to Commissioner's point, to have someone on the executive team at that higher level, to have that global look as to what we're doing, making sure we are reinforcing community standards, that is what this Deputy Commissioner will provide. And then COO Richardson will fall under that person as well as Dr. Kennedy.
And, okay, I'll just stop there because I think I asked multiple questions as one. Thank you. Thank you for the response.
I have one quick question. When did your contract with UConn Medical end? What year?
In 2018 is when we took, 19. is when we-
2019.
when they
So
came
you've been
over.
without medical oversight really since 2019.
Well, we do have a Chief Operating Officer, and again, we do have a MD within our leadership structure, but as far as the executive level, we have not. This will be, to my knowledge, the first time that we'll have an MD at the executive level.
Okay. Representative Gonzalez.
No, oh, yes, no, oh,
Okay.
never mind, go ahead. Representative
But
Gonzalez.
she's gone. Okay, she left. Okay. Representative Gilchrist?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Commissioner. Good to see you.
Good morning. Good to see you.
I am not going to remember what it was called, but last year, I believe your budget created a task force or a working group to look at overtime pay. Can you provide an update to the working group on how many times that group has met, who is a part of that group, and I would love to see how you've been able to reduce overtime pay since establishing that entity.
We will provide you that information, but upfront, we have not been able to save any overtime. If anything, for this calendar year, we're up 8% more than last year. So right about now, compared to last year, we've utilized 130,000 hours more of overtime. And there's many contributing factors that we can talk in the work group, but anytime correctional staff member is off duty, whether it's vacation, sick time, training, whatever the reason is going to generate overtime. And 92% of the overtime that has been utilized is because of correctional officers and correctional lieutenants.
Okay. I feel like this is part of question one. In last year's budget, there was a cost savings, I believe, connected to that.
Correct.
So how is that increase then reflected in this budget? I guess maybe we can dive into that, because that savings didn't happen, obviously, and then, okay.
Became a deficit in its cover under the $3 million that we got for PS
Okay.
for the adjustments.
Okay, thank you. And then, in talking about the healthcare, we heard last year, and still have meetings with folks about, but very compelling in the public hearing, and I would assume actually probably later today we'll hear this again, about the caseload that the various healthcare providers have. Is there anything reflected in this budget proposal that would increase the staff to be able to reduce caseloads for physicians, nurses, social workers within the Department of Corrections?
In this budget, midterm budget adjustment, no, but I continue to have conversations with OPM because my main focus is the staffing levels with the inmate medical service.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator Winfield.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for the second time. Just really quickly, one, the overtime thing is really disappointing. I think you may remember that while we were hopeful, I just could never figure out how that was going to work. So that's disappointing. But I do have a question about the study, the $1 million study. So the $1 million is if we already have the data, is that just for the people to do this study? Is that what it is?
So I will start first, and then I'll have my chief operating officer answer that question. I'm disappointed too that we were not able to reduce the overtime. We did reduce the overtime in 2019, and that was why I believed at that time that we were able to do it. And there's many contributing factors that contribute to the overtime. So I'm disappointed as well. Go ahead, Mickey.
There's a consulting group that is assisting in this effort, and I believe that's where the costs are going to be accruing.
Okay, so it's for their contract. All right, and just before I go, so you're talking about these folks who are in our system and get discharged and may cause it. So is there a way that we are able to assess the medical discharge planning and see if there are any efficiencies or efficacies we can build into that, or do we not have that capability? Because I would assume that may have some role in this question.
Senator, we should be able to have that capability, and I will bring that information to you in the work group, probably send to you prior to the work group, if that's okay.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. So I have a couple questions on two completely diverse issues. I know you're on the list, and you are on the list. You're next, right after me, and then there's 3 more people after that. So we're not forgetting you. There were high tech in the budget is something that has been working from a grassroots level up for staff, both staff medical issues and staff mental health issues. So the actuarial reports on Department of Corrections staff show that that corrections has one of the highest rates or lowest rates, depending on how you're looking at it, of length of expectant life, generally around the 60 range. I've shot past that, but I started later, so maybe it'll catch up to me. I don't know. But the high tech, how do you perceive that as working for you within the department relative to your staff?
Yeah. So I will start, and then I'm going to have DC Carlos speak on it because she sits in a lot of those meetings and oversees it. But that high tech, it's beneficial for our staff. I mean, they've been able to do sleep studies to assist our staff. They've been able to, when you walk into our correctional facilities and you see the mats that are on the ground, in particular for the officers' posts, and that was designed based on the study, and so it does have a benefit. It does have the benefit for our staff, and I do worry with a stressful environment that these correctional staff are working. That the more studies that we can do for them and improve their working conditions, we're heading the right way. So, DC Carlos?
And before the Deputy Commissioner speaks, I just want to say that we also have one of the highest suicide rates among staff in the Department of Corrections. That is well documented because of the environment that they're working in.
As you know, we do have an employee assistance unit that is a DOC staff, and I don't get the names, but I do get the calls when they're active in the community, and it is alarming, the numbers in 2025 of information when it came to suicide attempts with DOC staff is alarming.
Thank you. Deputy Commissioner?
Thank you. And just to add, I'll start with the latter to what Commissioner Carroll spoke to with our Employees Assistant Unit. We've had over 60 individuals that had suicidal ideations, but our Employees Assistance Unit was able to work with them. They are here. To date, we do not have any staff members that have worked with this unit that have completed suicide, so we are grateful for that, given, as you mentioned, the environment. To speak to the high tech, we want to thank this Appropriations Committee for ensuring that the funding has been there. Our director of the Maloney Center for Training and Staff Development works with the high tech program very closely. They have monthly meetings. They're working with our collective bargaining units to include the officers, the supervisors, and our 1199 staff members. So the environmental, that piece, how can we make that environment more welcoming for our staff is important and at the forefront of their mission. How do we reduce the stress? So that's been a part of it, ensuring that those training hours are there, that stress reduction. And then also high tech, some of the members on a national level actually presented to speak about what we're doing here in Connecticut. So to answer your question, we are continuing to work together. We thank you for that, continuing that effort and seeing the need for our staff. Yes, we want to focus on the population, but thank you for identifying the need for those that are providing the services on the inside.
So when I work, again, I go back to my history. Apparently I'm old enough to have a lot of history. But I knew a lot of staff that had killed themselves. In the Department of Correction, many people above the number of 20 in my 21 years in the Department of Corrections that killed themselves as a result of their job. And so I just want people to understand that that is something that happens amongst a job classification that's very difficult. And I worked with high tech before it was paid for by the state, paid for by UConn, and there are many national studies out of this program showing the impacts of it. So I'm happy to continue to do that. I'm happy that you talked about it. My second question has to do with another historical aspect of my career. We did a lot of work on the Prison Rape Elimination Act, and I think that that's important to understand, because the Prison Rape Elimination Act was not just for incarcerated person on incarcerated person, or staff on incarcerated person, or incarcerated person on staff. It was also on staff on staff. That's how many other states review the Prison Rape Elimination Act. Is that report readily available for folks to see? I worked on this with a group of people under End Sexual Violence is what they call the group now, but it was the National Organization of Women, it was QUELF, it was a whole host of people. Where do you stand on that report, and how is that moving forward?
So we are complying with the PREA standards. Every 2 years, the facilities are getting audited. Where there's a vendor, we put on RFP for the vendor to come. The vendor, once he or she is hired, will visit each 13 correctional facility, and there's a time frame for each visit. They could spend anywhere from 2 to 3 days in the facility reviewing policies, doing focus group with the population, doing focus group with the staff. Then once that's completed, they are responsible to fill out a report, and that report is submitted to the Department of Justice. The Department of Justice, once they review that report, will approve or disapprove if the state has failed. Since 2016, we have passed, and I want to be clear, we have passed every audit that has been submitted to DOJ, and we have lost zero fundings when it comes to that. With the disability rights report that came out with the staff members that engage in sexual conduct, misconduct with the population, and I just want to be clear, those ladies were victims, period. Victims, period. When you take an oath to become a correctional staff member, there's nothing that's consensual. They're the victim, period. I'm in conversation with OPM to bring a consultant in to do examine our policies and procedures when it comes to PREA, go to the academy and examine our curriculum when we talk about professional boundaries with the population and how we're teaching our cadets when it comes to dealing with the female population that are incarcerated, and also take a look at our hiring practices. I'm a strong believer that I think there should be a psychological exam for entry level for correctional officers, so that we hire the best individuals in order to minimize these situations from happening.
I also want to say, and I thank you for that, because this was a huge endeavor that the department took on. I do think that it may behoove everybody to remember that there is no consensual relationship with an incarcerated person, but supervisors shouldn't have a relationship with a subordinate either. It makes it for a very difficult work environment, and if it ends, it always ends badly. And I think that that's something that, you know, I know when I was there that was for a long time happening and then stopped as a result of some of the work that you have done, some of the work that the department has done, some of the work that people who had lived experience on that were going through. But I think sometimes we become complacent, and I'm not saying that that's happening now, but I want to make sure that it doesn't happen, that we fall back on something. And so I think that should be part of the PREA report, is any staff on staff problems relative to that. Other states do include staff on staff problems, and I think that's something that we might need to continue.
And you have my full, I know we have conversations about this recently, and you got my full commitment that these supervisors subordinate cases cannot happen. It is against the administrative directive. They are being investigated and they are being disciplined in accordance. Some individuals have received lengthy suspensions. Other individuals have received demotions.
Yeah, 90-day suspension.
90-day suspension.
No, lengthy suspensions.
So thank you for that. Representative Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for your work and your testimony. I just wanted to go back to the cost of health and behavioral health care. In the Garner Institute, you were indicating that it's $263 a day.
A day, correct.
And you're doing a study, and I wondered if you had compared it with the Whiting Forensic Institute and the cost per day there, and then taken a look at what they have available for behavioral health therapists versus what you have at Garner.
We have not, but that is something that I'll make sure that we follow up for the work group and have some information for you. What are we doing with Whiting and so forth?
And the other thing is, have you looked to the Department of Public Health to see whether or not part of what you have here in Garner could be certified as a medical provider? And that may be another way to look at reimbursement for Medicaid, perhaps. I don't know, but I just thought of taking a look at that.
The difference between Garner and Whiting has to do with the classification of the individual that is housed there. Federal law prohibits the use of Medicaid or Medicare for if you're incarcerated. The folks at Whiting are not technically incarcerated, so there may be some ability for them to bill.
just thinking maybe if the behavioral health is that bad and they need to be in Gardner, then perhaps we should take a look at that classification and see whether or not they should be, transferred to not be, prisoners while they're getting treated, so they can get more time. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I just want to say, the Department of Public Health oversees nursing homes. We have a lot of problems with that. I'm not certain we want to give them another state agency to handle.
I thank you for that, Madam Chair.
Commissioner, we're dancing around a lot of things today. I hear it in my colleagues. Yeah. The fact that we had 3 inmates die last week has not been mentioned. I understand it's a difficult job, but our responsibility, I mean, it would be just as bad. It's like the state has responsibilities to people. And when we don't do that and we lose a life, then we failed. We used to have, we had the true unit and the worth unit, where we were working with trying to work with the population. But it's disappeared. Has it disappeared? They're still there? They're actively working?
Yes, ma'am.
They have activities and things are
Yes.
on the same scale that when they started?
Yes.
Education. We had education programs. What about the education programs? Do we still have the same things that we've been having for all these years? They're still equal?
Yes.
All of the classrooms, I've been told, are not filled. Teachers call in, call out. I've heard that there's high absenteeism. And you said DOJ has audited, you said Department of Justice has come in and seen your facilities.
The vendor comes in.
The vendor?
There's a vendor. There's an RFP that goes out, and there's a contract that we have with a vendor to provide. It's got to be a PREA-certified inspector. He or she will come into the facility. He or she will complete the report, and that report is submitted from the contractor to the DOJ.
We failed one with Manson, didn't we?
That was not a PREA. That was not PREA.
Okay, I'm not talking PREA.
Yeah.
I should not, I was not. I was just going through the things that I'm listening to now.
Yeah.
Audits that are done by DOJ vendors, I would like to see some of the audits, because I think the quality of life is what we should be looking at. And a lot of times they're looking at the buildings, which is good. That's part of the quality of life. But the other part of it is the fact that we have taken somebody into custody, and we are responsible for them during that time that they're there.
Yeah.
And whenever we lose a life, it's just like when we talk to other agencies, Department of Children and Families. When we lose a child, we lose a life. That is our responsibility.
Yeah.
We should be doing everything but standing on our heads trying to figure out what are we doing wrong.
Okay. Can I speak on it?
Yes, sure.
And I might get in trouble.
I'm going to get in trouble. So
But
we can go
I'm
together.
going to try to get some details
Okay.
without jeopardizing the criminal investigation that's going on by CSP and the investigation that's going by the inspector's office. Let's take the untimely death at McDougal. All right. The individual was last seen alive at 10:30. Okay. The officer speaks to the individual at the door around 10:45. Ship change happens at 11. When the officer, the new officer this tour, that's when the individual took his life. So that unit is toured every 30 minutes, So that individual had a conversation with the correction officer. When you take a look at the last one, the last individual that untimely at Gardner spent 2 weeks in Danbury Hospital. Discharged January 26th. Came back to us at Gardner, the infirmary. On January 28th, the doctor made a decision that this individual needed to go back out to outside hospital. Got admitted to UConn. Okay. At Thursday at 10 p.m., the UConn doctor decides to discharge the individual because the individual is stable. Okay. The individual gets to Gardner at midnight, and at 2 a.m., there's a medical emergency, and the individual passes away. Okay, so these are the situations that, as a commissioner, that I'm dealing with. And as a commissioner, you know, the media, we got 3 deaths in the correction. What is the commissioner doing about these deaths? Well, I take these deaths very seriously. You know, this is a father, this is a son, this is a brother, this is an uncle. And I meet with my executive team, with the leadership, and you know, what can we do after every death to improve. I'm in constant communication with the inspector's office. But some of these deaths, I can't prevent. You know, in my mind as a commissioner, I'm asking questions to my executive team. Why is a doctor going to discharge an individual at 10 o'clock at night when I have no doctor at Gardner on 2nd or 3rd shift? Why couldn't that individual wait until the morning for assessment? So those are the situations that I'm dealing with. And again, we will continue to do everything we can to safeguard these individuals and provide them with the services that they need so they're able to discharge and be successful. You know, but
I understand, sir. I hear you. But you got to look at what is coming out of the prisons right now. And that is your responsibility, but it's also our responsibility.
it's definitely my responsibility. And my responsibility is to speak and advocate for these individuals. My responsibility is to speak and advocate for funding and attempts to get funding. And all the funding I've received to improve health services since I took over as a commissioner, it's been conversations I've had with OPM and getting the extra precision, and that is it. That's the only funding I have received, you know. So so I welcome any more fundings from the appropriations from anywhere, and focus on how we can improve the services. That PA 22-133 speaks in detail on the nurses we need, the doctors we need, the mental health staff we need, the equipment that we need so we can carry out these duties, and then some construction, because these facilities were not built to be medical. But I will stop there.
Again, we hear you, but we can't go back to our neighborhoods and our communities and say, we're looking into it. We can't just look into it. We have to have an active oversight activity. We have to work much more aggressively with everybody. We'll make those voices, but we have to do that because we cannot continue on this path. And the fact that we're using this as a mental health facility is just, it's unhuman what is happening. And we're just not getting the volume that I think we should have. It doesn't matter whether it's an adult or a child that is in our custody, we should be taking a lot more seriously. It's beyond the dollars. It is about what are the programs and the projects. How are we training our COs? How are we teaching them the different things of de-escalation? How are we working with dialectic behavioral therapy? I mean, real things that are going to change the character of what we've got. You've got the characters. They're typical. They're tough and they're aggressive, but you have that responsibility, and we should be behind you and giving you the dollars that you need. But more importantly, it's not just the dollars, it's the foresight of what do we see us going to for helping people in corrections. I know a lot of your people have gone to Norway to see what they've done. How have we brought that back to here? What things have we brought back here to change this system? Because it's the same system, and it's just getting worse as opposed to better. So whatever we need to do for you, and I understand it is hard, But you know what? It is our jobs. And we got to take it a lot more seriously or get out. That's all I can say.
Can I respond back to the, to Norway?
So give us a list of the things that you think happen, okay, that we need, though. I want your list of what we need, not just medical and millions of dollars. I want to know, what do we need to do for the staff, and what do we need to do for the programming to change this trajectory that our Department of Corrections is going in?
Can I just mention one thing, please?
Sure.
Norway, so we did send staff to Norway, supervisors, wardens, frontline staff, counselors. We have implemented from Norway at York, it's called a resource team, a lieutenant on first shift with 4 officers, and the same a lieutenant on second shift with 4 officers, dealing with the most trouble population. It could be from self-harm, it could be from behavior issues, and we've seen a significant decrease. One young lady was a cutter and will be out in a hospital every 2 weeks and will cost the DOCs hundreds of thousands of dollars because of surgery and so forth. That young lady, while working with the resource team, has not gone out to outside hospital visit in 6 months. And at Gardner, we have the activities team. Again, they focus on the most difficult individuals that isolate themselves with the mental health piece and all that, bring them in, you know, and have training classroom sessions with them, and just get them to address some of the concerns they may have. And these staff members have been trained by the amens in University of UConn and University of California. So we are doing that. And I just want the committee to know that I do take the job very seriously.
I think you
All right?
do, sir.
And I can tell you that nobody feels the pressure more than myself. All right, and it's a 7-day job, 365 days a week. You know, so I do take my job very seriously. I just want the committee to know that, though.
We need to do better by you. Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you, madam.
So we're getting close to our end of our time here with the commissioner. We have Representative Candelaria and Representative Nuccio. Representative Candelaria.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick question to follow up. This question in regards to the 1 million allocation for health services innovation pilot. And you talked a little bit that you're trying to gather data with that particular pilot. I'm just curious to know, because I know you had a contract with NAFCare, Representative NAFCare. And what services did they provide? Is it similar? Can we gather some of from the work that they did, gather some of that data? Is there a possibility?
It's not the same type of work.
Can you talk just briefly about that?
I don't have specifics on the NAFCare. I know they're not the same. I mean, this is a completely different purpose of this, but we can get you that for the working group.
So NAFCare was basically reviewing the information and ensuring that if somebody's going to go out for an exam and they needed to do 3 things before the exam, that those 3 things were being done. So when the individual went over to the appointment, that individual was not sent back because we failed to do A, B, or C. So it's almost like a utilization review board when UConn had it.
Okay, so more of a utilization review than anything else.
But it helped us making sure that if Kairos is going out for whatever the procedure is going to be in Kairos, you had to make sure that Kairos got a physical exam, Kairos got A, B, and C, that happened in correction. So when the individual gets to the surgery time or the visit, everything is done.
Okay. And my last question is, in regards to the legal service to prisoners, how many cases would you guys worked on in the last year?
Are you talking about the line item?
Yes.
That's not the purpose of that contract.
So
They're there
correct
to
me, what's the
provide
purpose of
access
that?
to it is for to assist the inmate population with access to the courts. All right, so the legal services that are provided are not defense. They're not there. They don't represent the inmate population. They're there to help them fill out the paperwork, apply for appeals, apply for any other matter that they have pending before the courts. There's a lot of paperwork involved. And that's that, and to provide some education as to what that process is. But they are not there to be defense attorneys.
Okay.
So furthermore, that is Lewis versus Casey. All right, so the ILAP attorneys do not represent inmates in court or before any administrative agency. A lot of the business from July 1st, 2025 to December 31st, 2025, ILAP received 2,766 calls from the population. And let me see, written corresponding, over 1,800 pieces. ILAP sent out over 2,472 pieces of legal mail to the population. So, yeah, so they're not there to represent them.
Okay. Maybe we have to redefine the name of that line item, because that's how I viewed it. But thank you for the correction. Appreciate that.
Representative Nuccio.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And as my last one, this will be quick. For the work group, I'm doing a deep dive of all of the items that are in the budget. And I was wondering if you can please bring with you a description of all of the programs that are in your line items here, what they do, who they help, what the metrics are on them. So as Representative Candelaria here, we can understand exactly what all of these things are doing.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you, Commissioner. Are there any other questions for the Commissioner? Let me see if I have anything online. I'm sorry. And we have the Board of Pardons and Paroles. Are they here today? Board of Pardons and Paroles, come on up, sir. Thank you, Commissioner.
Yeah.
Chairperson Jennifer Medina.
All right.
I'm not going to say the last name. Executive Director Joe Garibaldo. Garibaldi.
Chairperson Zaccanini will be with you momentarily.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, guys.
Good morning.
Hi, how are you, ma'am?
Hi, my apologies. I'm in the middle of a pardon hearing, so I just took a recess from that.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Do you have a couple of comments you want to make to begin with?
We did submit testimony beforehand. Would you like me to read that testimony?
I don't need you to read it. I think we can all do that. Do you have any other overviews that you want to put in relative to that?
Sure. Yeah. So there's no change in our budget for the upcoming fiscal year. And in fiscal year 24-25, we reviewed 2,962 cases related to parole and 2,032 applications for pardon. We had 1,839 hearings to grant, deny, rescind, revoke, or discharge parole or special parole, and 1,583 reviews resulting in the granting or denial of pardons. We reviewed 47 new applications for commutation and held 4 commutation sessions, during which 2 individuals were granted a commutation. The board has 68 full-time and part-time positions, of which 56 are currently filled. There's 5 vacant part-time board member positions, as well as 5 vacant permanent staff positions due to retirements and promotions. 2 are pending medical retirement. Of the 12 vacant positions, we're seeking to refill 5 permanent staff positions. And when the medical retirement process is complete, we'll refill those additional 2 permanent staff positions. And I failed to mention my executive director, Joe Garibaldi, is there as well in person.
Yep, he's sitting right in front of us.
Okay, good. Oh, I see him now. Okay, thank you.
Just doesn't show up accurately when you're online and they're here, so it's hard to mesh the two. So we heard some talk about the victim service advocate position that is in your auspices. There's an umbrella that includes them. There was also some questions on how does that interface with the victim's advocate from the original case that was heard in the courts to what happens when it gets to the Board of Pardons and Paroles, and do you interface with the victim's advocate and the victim service advocate, which are under 2 completely different agencies?
Right. So we have housed in our office 3 victim advocates from the Office of Victim Services. So they are the only advocates that we have contact with.
Thank you. Do you have anything that you two would like to say? You got to turn that mic on.
There we go. No, I don't.
Thank you.
Nothing additional.
Is there anybody that has any questions? I don't see any questions right now. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
all set. You
Thank
guys
you.
had the easiest time
That was
of all.
quick.
Great. Appreciate it.
Now you can go back to your case.
Thank you.
Up next is the probate court administration. I saw you out there, Beverly. Okay. So we did get your testimony. We can read that, but most concerning to Representative Walker and I were trying to understand the removal of the dollars from your budget. So if you could explain what the consequences of that would be.
The consequences are significant. Good morning, Senator Austin, Representative Walker, Senator Summers, Representative Nuccio, and members of the Appropriations Committee. I am Beverly Streit, the Probate Court Administrator. Thank you for the opportunity to remark on the governor's proposed adjustment to the probate court system, which is significantly harmful. The current biennial budget provides for the fiscal 27 budget a general fund appropriation of approximately $3.6 million. Even at that level, I have submitted to the legislature for this session an adjustment increasing that appropriation to $18 million. That level of funding is approximately 25% of the total budget for the probate court system and does not even cover the out-of-pocket expenses for indigent individuals served by our community in the probate court system, the kinship and respite grants, the regional children's probate court services, which are critical for appropriate and sustaining placement of our children in the communities with family. And I would ask actually the Appropriations Committee to adjust the current budget to increase our funding level to $18 million. Now, the governor's proposal does not only eliminate a complete line item for our system, eliminating the $3.6 million, it does propose a suspension of the sweep. But even with that, it would still leave at the end of fiscal year 27 only about $4 million in the fund, which does not even attain the level of the retention amount that was also adjusted in the last session at 20% rather than the 15%. Listening to not only the judicial branch before me, but the Department of Corrections and the elevated number of individuals incarcerated with psychiatric conditions, that is also a reflection of the situation in our communities. We have a significant number of individuals who are conserved. The stereotypical conservatorship from many years ago was an elder with dementia. That is no longer the typical person under conservatorship. And the goal by statute and frankly simple human courtesy is that that individual can be maintained living in the community. An individual who has psychiatric or substance use disorders, to keep them in stable housing with the supports they need to be a functioning, successful individual in our community, frankly, is done largely with our professional conservators. My budget does not propose any type of compensation adjustment for our court-appointed attorneys who are paid only $58 an hour to represent individuals and children, nor for our conservators who are only paid $52 an hour to maintain individuals living with the best resources that they deserve. That expense alone is over $10 million a year for our system at the current rates. And those rates are clearly significantly less than what we should be compensating for increasingly complex and difficult cases. The governor's proposal, frankly, is devastating because it doesn't even allow us to maintain a modicum of those services. Fee waivers in our system are granted readily for indigent individuals. Affordability, as we know, is a catchphrase perhaps today, but it is an economic reality and on the rise in our system. Fee waivers are granted to eliminate filing fees, but it also renders respondents and children in our courts to have constitutional representation when their rights are at issue. Again, that's over $10 million a year. That is not even the $3.6 million covering that expenditure. And it's rising year over year based on complexity of cases and the increased number of individuals seeking professional conservators in our state. It rises 5% year over year. And that is also not factoring in what we all know is an aging population and the tsunami of baby boomers who are going to be hitting the probate court system with similar needs. I do implore the appropriation to adjust our general fund appropriation to $18 million so that we can continue to sustain the services that serve the needs of our most vulnerable residents in the state, our children, our elders, our individuals with psychiatric and substance use disorders, individuals that need our support and depend on the conservators, the attorneys, the probate judges, and the court staff to make sure the expenses to the state of Connecticut are not greater. We save the state of Connecticut over $2 billion every single year because we ensure that seniors live in the community and not in a nursing home, that individuals with psychiatric issues can remain in the community with housing and not require intensive inpatient psychiatric commitments. We save the state $2 billion a year. I'm asking for $18 million. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge. I have just a couple things. The rate of pay for the two positions that you talked about, what is that in other states? If you could get that to us so that we could have that, that would be really important for us to understand what we're doing relative to conservators. And I just think that it's time that we sort of paid attention. And my understanding, we went to a regional probate system. We had long-term problems or expenses relative to the probate system. We consolidated a lot of probate courts. We've done a lot of work relative to that, overseen by you and others. Is there an understanding, if we had not done any of that, do you know where we would be on expenses relative to the probate court system? Because we've already been, it's not like we're not looking at being frugal. We have been. We changed the whole system. We did a lot of regionalization. And, I would like to understand, if we hadn't done that, where would we be?
Effective in 2011, the Connecticut legislature reduced probate courts from 117 local districts to the current 54. If we had not consolidated, we would be expending an additional $5 million just in the salary and costs. We're reduced to 54 local districts. We have 6 regional children's probate courts. And frankly, I think our system would have long been insolvent. In fact, insolvency and running in the red was one of the impetuses for that consolidation effort. We have continued to strive to enhance efficiencies. We launched an e-filing, electronic filing system in January of 2020. Just the implementation and the expansion of that program to our state agencies, the Department of Administrative Services in its recent report has remarked and credited our system in enhancing their efficiencies, their elimination of paper processing and processing time that has resulted in a recovery to the general fund of $54 million. And that is just one of the state agencies who we partner with to ensure efficiencies and expansion of streamlined services. Again, that's just one element. We have expanded our e-filing system DCF, DSS is on the cusp. We are working with DOC and DEMIS and DESPE so that any state agency that interacts with our system will have a streamlined ability to file and review cases. It's also a system that is open to any party in any probate court system, and that enhances individuals in the community to have access to the courts. They can see their case 24/7. They can file. They can see hearing notices and be on top of the cases that impact their personal lives on an increasingly accessible manner. And another initiative that we have undertaken, again, along the lines of technology, but is a launch of a new website. It is ADA compliant. It ensures that anyone with any type of visual, audio, or other similar cognitive, other type of impairments have access to a website that meets their needs with user guides, court forms, procedures, information on where the courts are located. It's also, I think it's kind of neat, but it's also adaptable on a mobile phone device. More and more people access internet and resources through their mobile devices, and it is user-friendly for that as well. Those are the initiatives that we continue to enhance in our system so that the public has free and clear access to the courts that they need.
Thank you. Representative Walker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I've been in Approps for a long time, long time. And I was looking at I was glad you did that graph because I needed to put it in perspective. So back in 2014, you got that maybe $9 million versus the $40 million that you earned in fees and services at the court. What we've always done is said, what is it that you need for operations? And usually we get a little bit of detail on what are the things that have gone up. I mean, your obviously your overhead has gone up. If you could bring to the working group something that could give us the understanding of the things that are exceeding. I remember we did do healthcare, and we did that last year or the year before that?
2 years ago.
2 years ago? Okay. Time flies. Is that factored into the 18 million that you're talking about? Okay, so we need this, that 18 million that you're talking about unpacked.
Absolutely. I can put that together for.
What the increases are. I know your overhead has got to be increased because you're in older buildings and things like that, and I'm sure that doesn't help. But give us a little bit more detail than just saying I need. Okay.
Absolutely.
Give us some of those things and we'll be good. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Representative Nuccio.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I think you guys are at a little bit of a disadvantage because you're one line in the budget. You're literally like one line in one number. So I was hoping for the work group. Could you please bring a detailed breakdown of exactly what it is that you're providing, how much it is, who you're providing it for, what are the metrics on those programs and such, and just give us a little more detail. It's hard to listen to all the things that you're saying that you do without kind of having something in front of us to look at. So I think it would definitely be beneficial to understand exactly what falls under you guys, the dollar amounts of everything, who you're servicing, how you're servicing them, and everything. So if you could bring that to the work group, I would really appreciate it.
Thank you, Representative Nuccio. We'll do that. Included in my written testimony, it's not as detailed as what we may present to the working group, but on page 3, I do delineate just some of the key elements, and that expense alone is in excess of $20 million for items such as conservators for indigent conserved persons, attorneys for indigent parties, the kinship and respite grants, waived probate fees for indigent petitioners, as well as supporting the regional children's probate courts. And you may be aware the vast majority of our local probate districts are in municipal buildings. Those are not an expense to our system. Those are expenses borne by the actual municipalities. So that, in some respect, is a savings to the state budget as well. And I think that is a significant contribution that our communities give to make sure that we have those local probate districts. And we'll get you more detail at the next session.
I appreciate that. And then if you do have any information also on the fees that you collect, like are they coming into the general fund? Do they go to offset your budget? Like you guys are kind of like an enigma amongst this entire department here, right? But you're its own kind of ecosystem. So I'd really kind of like to understand the debits, credits, how it all flows in that.
Thank you. We do look, frankly, for 75% of our budget to be funded through probate fee revenue. And we ask the legislature to fund at 25%, what we consider to be a normalized level of funding. And that 25%, again, is to ensure that the constitutionally mandated expenses addressing the needs of indigent individuals are covered through the general fund. I know you've heard me probably year over year, and my predecessor as well, talk about the volatility of probate fee revenue, but it is also the escalating expenses for indigent individuals in our communities that is rising year over year at 5%. And we need to not only ensure that those services remain in place for those critical individuals and those needs, but also buffering the volatility in the probate fee revenue.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Representative Candelaria.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It appears that we're always having the same conversation year after year. And I've been at this committee probably a little bit less than Representative Walker, but I've been hearing this conversation consistently, right? How we sweep the money and the services that you provide. When I look at your graph here, I see that in fiscal year 14, you were a little bit under $40 million in expenditures. Now you're a little bit under 70 million. Now you talk about the services you provide to the indigent community, which I understand are much necessarily needed. Now, I'm trying to wrap my head around why are we still having, even in 2026, the same conversation about the services you provide to the indigent community, and you consistently get, your funding gets reduced. So there is a disconnect from what the services that you provide to the indigent community to the dollars that you need to achieve that and maintain the same level. As you just stated, it can at least increase 5% every year. Now, my question to you is, based on the recommendation that we've seen of cutting the 3.6 and suspending the sweep, that's not sufficient to cover current services?
That is accurate. So again, the net funding deficit in terms of those mandated expenses is in excess of $21 million. So even if our fund is not automatically swept, and there's an elimination of the 3.6, it would not meet even just those minimum expenses. Our total budget, as you can see on the chart, is just under $70 million. Our expenses for those mandated critical services is approximately 1/3 of the expenses. And that's not operational. That's for conservators paid at $52 an hour to make sure someone has stable housing and gets the medical care they need, allows our seniors to age in place and not be put in a nursing home. And again, the cost of a nursing home is $15,000 to $16,000 a month in the state of Connecticut. And if we can keep, my mom living in the community in her own home and not spending that kind of money in the nursing home, it's a quality of life measure as well as an economic benefit.
I totally understand it. So it would be great to see a picture, not so much as in dollars, which as the Appropriation Committee, that's what we look at, but I would like to see from 2014 to now, how many families are we servicing each year and how that has increased. I understand it's 5%. I want to look at that for 5% in actual figures of individuals that we have serviced. because the service that you provide has helped other state agencies throughout the years. And I know we've had this conversation in the past, where why aren't these state agencies that you're providing services for, why are they not shipping in to cover the costs? I know we've had this conversation consistently, and we still continue to do that, but I think we need to move the needle along so that we, next year, I don't want to sit here again and hear that, money is being swept. I don't want to hear that we need additional money, right? I want this to be resolved because I understand the work that you do and how important it is. So I think we need to see that bigger picture so that everyone, even in the executive, can see what we're talking about. Thank you.
Thank you. We are actually on the cusp of finalizing our biennial report, which includes significant statistics about the system, including data on the number of individuals served, the volume of petitions that the probate courts process every month. That is due for publication by April 1st, but we have some of those statistics we can share shortly.
All set, everybody?
Excuse me.
You're all set, Joe? Good. All right. You're all set. We just need some information at the work group. We'll see you there. We're gonna recess and take a break. Right now, we'll come back with the agencies for 1 o'clock, general government A. Thanks. Hey, guys, are we just staying on this link, or do we going to another link? Do you know?
No.
Thank you. Oh my gosh. We can sign back in. We can do it ever we want.